Welcome everyone, my name is Gregor and today I will guide you around Monza in the Ferrari 499P hypercar. So, we're starting the lap already on the back straight, just before the last corner parabolica. And when we go into a quali lap here, it's crucial that we open up the corner as much as we can so we can gain every additional 1,000 on the flying lap. So we start the lap here on the left side, late apex, and then floor the car as early as we can and open the steering, run wide, and bring the car over to the left side. As we approach now turn 1, we already want to stay here on the left, as we want to not bring the car really late over, as this can basically be a disadvantage for the turn-in process. So we try to be here on the left white line, follow it, and as early as we can we try to aim for our braking reference point. In this case, it's the 150 meter marker, and we try to brake exactly when we arrive there, from the last to first gear or second gear, depending on the car and gear issue you drive. And it's really crucial that you stay as long as possible straight, because if you turn in too early, especially in those hypercars, you will then get the inside curb in the wrong angle. It will bounce you off and you won't be able to make the second corner. Also important to notice is that depending on the hypercar you drive, you can take more or less of the curb at the apex. So really late turn in here, clip the start of the curb to help you to pull the car around. This opens up the second part, and as early as you can floor the car and open the steering. If you watch the hot lap videos, you will notice that the drivers go really aggressive onto the power, and maybe if you tried it out, it doesn't work for you and you spin. And this is all about being able to open up the steering while you go onto the throttle. And just to visualize it a bit better, we will jump into Delta and have a look at turn 1. You see really well. This is the first part of the chicane. We have this throttle blip to basically position the car perfectly for the second corner. And this here now, if I go a bit more down here, you see really well how we try to essentially synchronize our throttle application with our steering application, right? So when we increase our throttle application, we want to simultaneously lower our steering or go into the neutral direction. So you see, as soon as the driver goes onto the throttle, the driver already starts to open up the steering at the same time. Because what essentially you're doing here is, the moment you start to open up the steering, you essentially give the tire a bit more traction, right? Because you take away the lateral grip and give it, the car for longitudinal acceleration. So this is why it's so crucial that when you floor the car and want to be aggressive on the power, you need to be able to go at the same time with the steering into the neutral direction. So you want to always open up the steering. Let's continue now with the second chicane. Basically turn 3 is just flat out, so nothing really to worry about. Pretty easy. And now we want to bring our car already on as close as possible to the right side. We brake at the 150 meter marker here, and the approach is identical to the first chicane. We try to brake most of the braking zone in a straight line, and then as we reach our final gear, we try to turn in, clip just a small amount of the curb. In the hypercars, they're overall a bit more sensitive to the curbs and bumps, so you always need to see if the car you're driving actually allows you to do that. If you want to be safe, just try to take the start of the sausages, not like go completely over it like you would do in the GT3 car. And when you've done that for the first part of the chicane, try to really straighten the exit here, take something off the curb and run wide. Be careful with the grille there on the exit. If you touch it, it can slow you down. For the first LMU, we use the orange marker on the right wall. So just before there, we want to start to brake. And here it's really important that you essentially don't put too much peak braking pressure initially, because if you brake too hard for too long amount of time, you'll instantly lock up and then the entire quali run, or in this case this quali lap, may be over. So really try to listen to the car. How much can you really brake without locking up? And especially LMU 1, LMU 2 are really important corners for that, because your turn-in process starts quite early. It's not like in turn 1 and or the first chicane and the second chicane that you brake really long in a straight line. Here the braking phase where you are essentially in a straight line is pretty short. So this is why you need to be careful here. When you reach on the apex, try to go as quickly as possible onto the power and floor the car, run wide, use all the track available. Be careful with the track limits here, because if you run like that, it will be mostly a cut. And the same applies for the second LMU. Braking wise, we aim for the 50-meter board and we try to use like 60, 70 meters as a reference depending on the car. And if this board gets destroyed in the race because someone spun off or just drove a bit of a special line, we try to get different reference points. And in that case, you can see here you have on the left side again the orange marker, which you can use. I know it's a bit further away, so if you want to use a different one, you can try to use the distance which you have when you need to brake, you know, to the wall, orange wall marker on the inside there as a reference point where you need to brake. You brake them there in a straight line, turn in earlier than you would think, try to attack the first part of the curb, so you don't want to drive completely over it. So you don't want to go like that over, because this will just unsettle the car and you will lose a lot of time on the exit. But you will just want to take, as I like to call, the Italian curb here on the inside. That's your limit. This will just help you to get the car slightly rotated, and then you can floor the car easily and run wide on the exit. To just show it to you a bit more clearly, we will jump quickly again into Delta, where you will see how we drive the LMUs. So this is what I was talking about. It's not like turn 1 or the second chicane where we can brake initially 100%. Like, we really need to feel what the tire is telling us. So this is why we, in this case, we only brake at 60%, because if I would brake at 80%, I would easily lock up and lose the car, understeer, and my lap will be gone. So this is why you need to have the confidence into the brake, especially in those hypercars, because you have no ABS. And the same applies for the second LMU. As here we have a bit of a longer phase than the first LMU where we can brake in a straight line. This is why we also can essentially build up a bit more brake pressure, but still it's not 100% like in the chicanes. So again, the corner where you really need to have the confidence in the brake pedal to be able to really gain all the time which is on the table. Also here really well to see on the throttle and the first LMU is if we go a bit more down here, you see again basically the connection between the steering and the throttle. You know, the driver can only go really to full throttle when he reaches almost a neutral steering. So this is always something which needs to be in your mind. As soon as we exit the LMU, we have like a bit of a breathing phase, so we can just take a deep breath and then start to focus on the one of the most important parts actually on Monza, which is Ascari, and especially in the hypercars it's pretty tricky. Why is that? First of all, you carry much more speed than in a GT3 car, and secondly, the car is much more sensitive to the curbs, so it's even more, you know, crucial to drive the right line. And as a braking point, you can use the bridge, for example, here, because you need to brake slightly earlier than in the GT3 cars. And then you brake in a straight line. Try to turn in as early as you can to cut as much of the curb here as possible, so to say. But it's important to not overdo it, because if you drive like that over the curb, it will be a cut. So always try to be in the track limits, of course. And when you were managing to cut the track accordingly, you will have a much better position out of the corner. And when you arrive here on the right side, what your target is, you can use a bit of the curb, but really important, don't use those yellow black sausages, because they will bounce the car off. So this is fine like that, but nothing more. When you've done everything correct to that point, you will be just like that in a straight position, and you can just straighten your steering wheel and drive like that over the second or last part of the Ascari here and run wide and maximize the track there. Just to symbolize it a bit better, let's have a look at our line in Delta again, because it's just so fundamental to get it right. So let's have a look here in that section, and then we go into the driving tab. We brake here in a straight line, and then we cut as much as we can here on the first part. So let's just jump a bit closer here. You see not a lot of room left here. Then we try to stay as close as possible here to the right side. So when we reach the end of the right, and now we can just straight line the entire section over the left part here. And this allows us the best possible exit onto the back straight. So when we arrive here, then we're almost done with the lap. And a lot of drivers do the mistake. They're thinking, oh yeah, they did the hardest part, and now they just need to bring the car home in the last one. But that's wrong, because Parabolica, the last corner of Monza, is such a tricky corner. You can lose the entire lap there with just a small mistake. Why is that? Your focus is a bit, a bit lower. So because you're almost done with the lap. So this is why you need to already tell yourself, hey, I need to get now also the last corner, right? And especially if you're on a really decent lap to that point, you can gain a lot of time in Parabolica if you approach it a bit more aggressive and you try to brake as late as possible. On the other hand, if you want to take it safe and you brake slightly earlier, you will lose a lot of time. So that's why it's important to get the braking point right. And when we arrive here now, we try to aim for the 100-meter marker. And as soon as we arrive there, we try to brake. We try to turn in slightly earlier than we would normally do, because the track, as you see, is banked. So this additional banking helps us to carry more speed into the corner without any negative consequences. And when we reach the inside, we try to go onto the power, open the steering so we can get as close or as quick as possible to 100%, run wide, and then in a quali lap for sure try to drive the tightest line, because this will give you at the end the quickest lap time. That's it for the lap guide. I hope it was useful. If you want to compare your own lap against the lap we checked out, make sure to get Delta. You will find quick hot lap videos here. And thanks for tuning in. See you in the next guide. Bye bye.